where we're headed so far. And everyone is decrying the cost of living as it is. Also, with the government increasing revenues here and there, trying to make sure that at least the revenue collection is at par as far as the KRA revenue target is concerned. People are taking special umbrage with that because they're saying the government is not empathetic anymore. We shall be discussing a raft of issues as well, putting tails on the story of the oil as far as Anjari is concerned and those intrigues around there. Also, the opposition talks, and that is the National Dialogue Committee, which retreated yesterday for to actually come up with a report, seems to also be crumbling. What is at issue? That is what also we're going to be looking at this morning. But first of all, let's see how the weather will be today. Right, as we wait for the weather, let me just show you what the dailies are holding, then we'll check the weather thereafter as we try and put our ducks in a row there. The Standard is holding this flash for you this morning. Talks heat turbulence. This is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. National Dialogue, the writing of a final report by Ruto and Raila teams fly into headwinds, it says, after the groups clashed over proposals to cut the cost of living, especially fuel-related taxes and housing levy, with some Azimio members staging a walkout as committee took a break for further consultations. This is some of the state of the bipartisan talks as it stands right now on the cost of living that has been smack dab in the middle of this conversation. Talks deadlock as committee, whose mandate expires on Friday next week, disagrees on some of the proposal to tackle the cost of living. And you might be aware that actually we had an extension of this particular dialogue committee and the talks, and that seems to be now lapsing on Friday. Still, there's no happy medium as far as the bipartisan talks is concerned. On timelines, impasse comes less than a week after the committee concluded its talks and announced it had reached a consensus on all 5 issues. So what is developing right now? We don't seem to understand. Seeking advice, yesterday, the committee adjourned its report writing session for further consultations, including with Treasury CS next week. Assurances, speaking after a closed-door meeting yesterday, co-chairs Kimani Ichung'wah and Kalonzo Musyoka assure the public that talks are progressing steadily. And we have some of their bites here. We have Raila Odinga saying, "I have been silent from commenting on the cost of living crisis facing Kenyans to give time to bipartisan talks outcome. We will give direction after the talks." This is what the leader said. Also, we have the president saying, quote unquote, "I salute the courage and patriotism of my fellow leaders who have embraced national dialogue and encourage all of us to keep up the noble work of bringing Kenyans together." This is what President William Ruto said during the State of the Nation address. Let's see what it is on top. Here is holding private guards minimum pay set at 30,000 shillings, and firms go green get awards as well. You can all see and read all about it on page 20. It's all about sustainability awards that is being, of course, promoted by Kenya Bankers Association. And the latest development as we are waiting for the determination on the Supreme Court in UK regarding Rwanda and the UK migrants deal. Now that seemed to have come to a cropper as it is. It was ruled as illegal. UK Rwanda's asylum plan ruled illegal, and now it is back to the drawing board for Prime Minister Sunak and the President of Rwanda, that is Ruben Kagame. Not Ruben Kagame, but of course Paul Kagame. You can actually follow that story on page 23. Ruben Kagame is a singer. You can read all about it inside the Standard. World Cup test as Stars face Gabon. That story continues on page 40 of the Standard this morning. Also, scientists find 300,000-year-old stone tools. Raila fights rise in ID charges. Opposition chief says increased charges on identity documents and a string of other enhanced levies totally unacceptable. That story continues on page 2. I'll run you by that particular story as well. And NCPB starts buying maize from farmers, though the farmers also are decrying that the price is way too low at 4,000 shillings. Something should be done about it, they say, or they will continue past holding, waiting for better prices. That story continues on page 12 of The Standard this morning. The Daily Nation, Raila moved Joel's bipartisan talks. This is what the splash is. Looking at the flag of their split, negotiations may be headed for collapse should the rival teams fail to strike a compromise. That is what the flag is reading here. There is a stalemate. A report's writing retreat by members of the National Dialogue Committee ended prematurely yesterday after the opposition side introduced fresh demands, including the scrapping of the housing levy, reduction of VAT on petroleum products, and zero rating of basic food items. But the government side refused to budge. And these are the demands here. First one, scrap housing levy. 2, let me try and zoom in so that we can read together. Reduce VAT on fuel from 16% to 8%. Slash foreign and domestic travel budgets by 30% to save 230 billion shillings annually. Cut hospitality and office supplies budget by between 25% and 30%. Decongest prisons from 66,000 to establish capacity of 32,000 to save 18 billion shillings annually. Reduce road maintenance levy charge to 5 shillings from 18 shillings per litre. And be aware that also this is what the Kenya Roads Board wanted to increase the levy to 5 shillings as it is right now. And reduce petroleum development levy to 2.7, that is 2 shillings and 70 cents from 5 shillings and 40 cents per litre. Zero rate basic food items. Remove excise duty on locally published books and educational materials, amongst others. This is the demands now that it seems to be upsetting the apple cart as it is. Well, these are fresh demands from Raila Odinga's side. I never met Njoroge. This is what a senior KRA official is saying. Just read a bit of it. It says that a senior Kenya Revenue Authority official yesterday denied ever meeting Ms. Njoroge, who is claiming ownership of the 17 billion shillings diesel consignment, as Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirichir maintained that the businesswoman tried to use forged papers to hijack the fuel. Last Thursday, Ms. Njoroge filed a complaint with Directorate of Criminal Investigations DCI, claiming that her 100,000 tons of diesel she imported from Russia aboard the empty Haigui ship was on the brink of being stolen by the government, or by two governments, that is Kenya and Saudi Arabia, working with Nairobi-registered Galana Energies. You can read all about it on page 3. This is a developing story. You're still waiting for the tail end of it to know what is the truth. On the sidebar, we have sports. Iten running mom. I love to see this, or I love to see them win during Sunday's Iten International Marathon in Elgeyo-Marakwet County. One woman caught the attention of many after she was caught on camera by Nation Sports photographer Jared Nyataya running alongside the eventual men's winner, Luka Kiprop, and that is a mom there, egging on the son. Carry on, 50. What a morale booster there. Scorecard, give Ruto time to fix the economy. This is what Mwaura now is urging Kenyans. Government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura yesterday asked Kenyans to give President William Ruto's administration 2 more years to stabilize the economy as he defended the head of state's policies and foreign trips. That story continues on page 10 of the Daily Nation. So 2 years is what they're suggesting. Others have been saying within 6 months things will have turned around. So we eagerly await as this moving target of the timelines continue to change. New regulations set minimum pay for security guards at 30,000 shillings. That is on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And employ 40,000 intern teachers on permanent terms. This is what Kupet is telling TSC, and this is on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. Security dossier exposes costs of Azimio protest. That is the story you want to follow inside the Star this morning. Insecure nation, economy lost 3.1 billion shillings daily. Every time demo staged, Kenya could have lost nearly 50 billion shillings between March and July. This story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. And stalemate, Dr. Raila talks on verge of collapse. And you can see, not really a related picture, but ODM leader Raila Odinga with Dagoretti North MP Beatrice Elachi, Nairobi Women Rep, that is Esther Passaris, and MP Tim Onyonyi during a meeting with Luhya religious leaders in Westlands. Nairobi yesterday. And on the sidebar, KCAC storm. Kisii lawmakers claim unjust profiling. MPs from the Kisii community have come to the defense of students in the region and accused the Examinations Council of unduly profiling the region. The lawmakers say the cases of irregularities being reported in Kisii and Nyamira counties are blown out of proportion and employed to undermine the education CS. This story continues on page 7 of the Star this morning. 9 more killed as floods wreak havoc in counties, and we have legislators now. They want the government to declare this a national emergency. 9 people have died, 400 displaced in Migori County as floods continue to wreak havoc across the county. In Wajir, Governor Ahmed Abdullahi appealed to partners and stakeholders to support 10,000 households affected by floods. This story continues on page 10 of the Star. State proposes plan to increase guards' wages. Security guards will soon be smiling all the way to the bank once a proposal to have their salaries increased by more than 50% is implemented. The move will see a junior private security guard earn at least 30,000 shillings. This is what the Star is saying here. And looking on top there, Chebukati was speaking abroad, and of course we were saying that technology can't cure impunity in Kenyan elections. You can read his story on page 2 of the Star this morning. People Daily up next. Why will it be hard to oust governors? Hard road to impeachment days after Meru MCAs sought to kick out Kawira. They and others of like mind will find the going tough if new bill proposed by Kiambu Senator is passed into law. This is a story you want to follow on page 7. And by the way, just to prime you that yes, we have the MCAs who are seeking for the 3rd time to impeach Kawira Mwangaza. Meru MCAs filed notice of motion to impeach Mwangaza for the 3rd time as voter petition Ruto to suspend the county should it be dissolved. Remember, Kifuda Kipwana also was in the sharpest heads of the horns of dilemma as well when the MCAs during his first term could not give him time to settle down and work, and he had to take the government, President Uhuru Kenyatta, to dissolve that particular county. Will it go that way, as some of the voters are entreating the president to make that decision? Raila, why will fight bid to charge fees for IDs? And World Cup, huge bonus if Stars beat Gabon today. So all fingers crossed. This is on page 30 and 31 of the People Daily this morning. And Wanga leads campaign against malaria. You can see him here. A standalone picture there. Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga with Public Health. PS Mary Mudhoni and USAID Mission Director David Gosney joining Kochia traditional dancers during the launch of distribution of treated mosquito nets to all households in the country. The movement to fight malaria amid heavy rains in some parts of Kenya is in partnership with development partners whose goal is to reduce infections from disease or that remain one of the Kenya's leading killers. You can follow the story inside the People Daily this morning. Kimeumana tena. Kimeumana. Wanachama watatu kati ya wanne wa Azimio wajiondoa kwenye kikao cha maridhiano. That is what the flag is reading here. And it's all about the bipartisan talks that is crumbling right now. You can read all about it inside the Taifa Leo. As we buckle down to business, this is what is the splash this morning. Kenya shillings free fall, inflating foreign debt by 3 billion shillings daily. Loan stock swells 20% since January. Weak currency adds 383 billion shillings in 4 months. And that is the depressing state that we are in as far as the shilling is concerned. Is there any interventions that is coming from central bank? And this is maybe why also the National Dialogue Committee wants to talk to the central bank, that is the governor, next week, as it seeks to do so. Though the time for this committee, for the time for the Dialogue Committee seems to be lapsing on Friday. We'll see how that really pans out. This article is on page 2. Drop in fuel bill usage to deny state 133 billion shillings. The Treasury has raised fears of losing 133.5 billion shillings in projected revenue in current financial year following a drop in motor vehicle and fuel imports, as well as lower sales of beer, spirits and cosmetics that earlier projected. The story continues on page 2 of the Business Daily. Safaricom tariff cuts to cost taxman 2.5 billion shillings. The Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, said it stands to lose up to 2.45 billion shillings in taxes from Safaricom annually if Parliament approves a proposal to cut the mobile termination rates, that is the MTR, further from 0.58 to 0.12 per minute. Bamburi also sells 12 billion shillings stake in Uganda unit. Bamburi Cement is set to sell its 70% stake in its Uganda subsidiary Hima Cement. And Nairobi Suburb Post. It post land price surge in 4 years. The cost of land in Nairobi's upmarket suburbs have shown glimmers of recovery from the lingering effects of COVID-19 pandemic that sent asking prices tumbling on reduced demand for commercial space. You can follow the story on page 13 of the Business Daily this morning. As we cross over to Uganda, this is what you're waking up to in Uganda. Mark to verify degrees of its working alumni. The country's premier institutions of higher learning has asked all employers and higher education institutions to submit academic documents of its alumni for fresh verification amid fears of rising cases of forgery. All right, so be aware. If you are holding a Makerere University degree, you need now to, your worker or where you're employed, they need to submit that particular degree to Makerere University for verification. This is because of what is happening currently as far as forgery is concerned. This story continues on page 4. Church clears Zinga wedding. That is the story that you want to follow there. And you can see Busoga says this is Busoga Public Officers Forum led by Agri Kibenga handed over a dummy check to Patrick Batumbia, the chairperson of the organizing committee of the Busoga Royal Wedding at the Sheraton Hotel in Kampala yesterday. The Church of Uganda has cleared the wedding between Kabazinga Gabula Nadiope. That is the fourth there, and Miss Jovia Mutesi scheduled for Saturday at Christ Church Cathedral, Bugembe in Jinja City. It's a big deal. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor. Scientists decode why grasshoppers are a no-show. Right? We know the menace of grasshoppers, but now they seem not to be a whole show. Hold your appetite. Climate experts say yesterday blamed the rains for the missing widely popular delicacy. Seems they're missing it in Uganda. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor this morning. And UN harboring terrorists. This is what Museveni is saying. President Museveni has accused the United Nations of conserving terrorism in Democratic Republic of Congo and breeding chaos in multiple countries in the Sahel region. The story is on page 5, a diplomatic showdown there. And on relationship, that is today, you can read all about it inside the Daily Monitor. In Tanzania, revealed soft underbelly of family businesses in East Africa. Family-owned businesses are an important pillar of industry across East Africa, but many face an uncertain future because they lack solid succession plans, according to experts. You can follow the story on page 2. Do's and don'ts as Dark Skies opens up. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. And also, government has listed benefits of Samir's Saudi Morocco visit. Right. We'll also hear from our spokesperson here on the CS's and the president's globetrotting. What has been accrued from there, is it of any material utility for the country as well? In Rwanda, I mentioned earlier, Rwanda, UK, now mulling new treaty on migration. This is after the Supreme Court yesterday made a determination regarding the deal, and they termed that UK-Rwanda immigrant deal an illegality. Over 2,500 migrants died or went missing in 2023 while trying to get to Europe. You can follow the story on page 3. And of course, many had trepidations and fears regarding this immigration deal, saying that Rwanda is one of the third world countries that is unsafe for them. Kagame chairs High Command Council. You can see him here. The Commander-in-Chief of Rwanda Defense Forces or Defense Force, speaking to senior security officers as he chairs a High Command Council on Wednesday, November the 15th. The council was attended by active and retired RPF senior officers from the Rwanda National Police, the National Intelligence and Security Service, Rwanda Investigation Bureau, and Rwanda Correctional Service, RCS. You can follow the story inside the New Times this morning. Well, I will be showing you much more. What we do have on the editorial cartoons, also what we do have on the East African this week, also what we do have on The Economist, Newsweek, amongst others, China Daily as well, the international publications as well. This is Morning Prime, but let me just go first to the first story, then we have our guest to chime in. I'm holding court this morning with Bill Okero, who is a businessman, a political economist as well. We have with us as well Dr. Shemo Chodho, who's the chair of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. We have the Kenya Development Corporation chair as well, Bunyasi Sakwa, with us. Let me just give them a hearty, warm welcome this morning. A cold one. Bill Okero, good to see you. Up and down. You're not feeling cold. I can see everyone is in a jersey. You're braving it in the morning. Okay. Bill Okero is a young man. Good to see you.
Feels good.
Yeah. And Bunyasi Sakwa as well. We missed you last week.
Yes.
How was your trip?
My trip was okay. I had lots of things to do. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm glad to be back now.
So what is the report from the trip?
Oh, the report from the trip is lots of rain down in Nambale. Lots of rain. Hitting dangerous levels for cropping. Other than that, no, I had some personal family issues, funeral and so on to deal with. Kept me busy.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. Dr. Shemo Chodho, good to see you.
Thank you, Debal. Yeah. I'm not as young as Senator Bilo, so old but very young at heart. I'm so delighted to see two of my friends get honorary doctorates, degrees. Dr. Mzemanu Chandaria at USIU, Africa, and Kipchoge.
Eliud Kipchoge as well?
Yes, Eliud Kipchoge too, from JKUAT. So I'm quite delighted.
Quite honored degrees, yes. Also the ambassador, the former ambassador of Slovakia. This is Mlinar, Dr. Mlinar, who's receiving honorary doctorate at KC University. Right, he's currently the deputy director of UN Habitat.
Right,
and also the deputy secretary general of the United Nations.
Okay, that's commendable.
So congratulations to him as well.
As a holder of one, I am sure these guys deserve.
Yes, yeah. Okay, you got a honorary degree as well?
Yes, from the US Marlborough College many years back when I was a little younger, like Mheshimiwa Bilo here. So usually those things come with hard work.
With hard work.
Right.
Well, so keep on working hard. So there's always a question of if you get a honorary doctorate, should we should we have that particular the appellation of a doctor before your name?
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, it's an honor. It's a recognition, just like the other one.
But I can see people from the academia, they normally say, no, you know, you've not really worked hard for it.
They're just jealous. They're just jealous.
Yeah. Someone decided that because of political patronage, maybe you've been funding the university.
No, even political patronage. But you could always add your PhD at the end to differentiate yourself.
Yeah. The Bala have a slightly different view in that regard. As to whether they should be called doctor, I'm a little slow because the academic work that comes with a PhD is a completely different field altogether. Because the honorary is something that you're given. Like in my case was because of work in politics, I guess, being part of the team that crafted NAC and getting into power, but also technology, introducing internet into Africa and all. So usually that's honorary. It's not something that you even expect. You get surprised. Like when I was called to Marlborough, I was invited to give a commencement speech in the US, and this was probably the first time a black person was doing so. So I'm being driven like 1.5 hours along the way. The professor tells me, you know what? We're going to give you a honorary doctorate because we think you deserve it. You know, what a pleasant surprise. So usually as to whether that alone should qualify one to be called doctor, I would be a bit slow.
That's not the greatest thing on earth.
Right. It's not the greatest thing on earth.
If you do the...
But it seems to carry weight here.
Then you do a PhD at the end. If you feel that your doctorate was out of DSc or a PhD, you put that at the end. But like medics and the PhDs, there's a big difference. In some places, like in the US,
Right.
Most people who call themselves a doctor are medical people, except in academic institutions.
Right.
But it's not a huge deal. I think for us here, getting into a PhD is like some pinnacle of some sort in life. So you want to be the only one at that pinnacle. But the truth of the matter is that it's all honor and recognition, for what you've done. So I personally would.
So the appellation coming before your name is a precept for the doctors, who are the medical doctors. Like for the Dr. Shemo Chodo, we should actually put the PhD at the end of it. Right?
Usually, one mistake...
As far as academia is concerned, that is the correct way. Even the way we put it here on TV, like Dr. Shemo Chodo, it should be Shemo Chodo PhD.
Either. The mistake often people make is to use both. Because it's not meant to be both. So you decide to use one. But allow me to agree to an extent.
Even from the people of academia, I've seen them using both. Doctor,
that's
PhD, MBS, and all those,
in English
behind their names.
In English, grammar would say that's an error. Having said that, the BAL, I'm pretty concerned about the quality of doctorates we issue. Particularly, I'm talking of academic. But that's a story for another day. I think at some point, Kenya needs to clean this thing of people getting degrees left and right, and you're not too sure whether the standards been met. I think is an issue that we need to have a conversation on as a country.
So I was just even, before you came, looking at Daily Monitor in Uganda, and if you are holding a degree from Makerere, now they need to verify your degree from with the place of your work. So if maybe you're the chair of KDC now, they'll reach out to KDC and try and say, hey, we actually want to verify this degree from Bunyasi Sakwa.
Of their own initiative.
Because there has been, a deluge of all this fake degrees. And I think in Uganda it has been a problem because for the last few months, even in abroad, they've been questioning the degrees that are coming from Uganda. And now everyone has to verify their degrees. So it seems forgery is not just, maybe it's an East African thing?
No.
Or maybe the experts here from River Road, they've gone to Uganda to show them how they do it?
It's a global thing.
It's a global thing.
Yeah, but I don't think institutions, institutions should take on the problem of verifying that their alumni have or have not had real degrees. I think the employers and the users of those degrees at the end, that should probably take the initiative.
No, but this is the other way around. Is the university now calling for all?
It won't go far.
Where our alumni is working right now, we need to verify their degrees.
They can't go far with that. They can't.
They can't go far with that.
No, I don't think their tracking system is even that good.
It headlining actually seems to be a very big, huge problem from Uganda. So we should be also cognizant of every degree that is coming from Uganda as well. Makerere University leading on that particular park.
The BAL, apart from Makerere, I know there have been issues in the past of Kigali International University, even affecting some Kenyan leaders. I think it boils down to the issue of value systems, the BAL. As a country and as a region, there is the Inter-Universities Council of East Africa, which I think is meant to kind of moderate our universities and their degrees and their courses. I think we need to do that more assertively because, breaking down of our values, the value system, the eroded value system, this is just a part of that rot. But I fully agree, a degree should not just be a paper. It should mean something. And anybody hiring should know that if I get somebody with this is what I expect. But in addition, I'm very happy government is introducing, government of Kenya, the recognition of prior learning. I do also know that people are pretty smart out of academic lineage, but that itself also requires standards. It must have a way of being examined so that if somebody is saying this one is equivalent to a degree or an artisanal certificate and so on, there must be something that backs it. But above all else, honesty and value systems is the most key.
Indeed. Right. Honesty, value system, very key. All right, let's see what the headlining stories are also saying. Looking at the Daily Nation, the Standard is all about the bipartisan talks. But let me just give you the meat of it, where ODM leader Raila Odinga has declared that the opposition will reject the government's plan to introduce application charges for new identity cards starting January next year. Speaking Right here in the capital, at a meeting with a section of religious leaders, Raila said that the government should issue identity cards to Kenyans free of charge as proof of citizenship, I should say. And as KTN's political affairs reporter David Mudhoka explains, Raila's statement comes amid public backlash over the government's move to hike application fees for not just identity cards, but also passports, marriage certificates, and death certificates that on Tuesday saw the government review of its own proposed charges.
Opposition leader Raila Odinga was in Westlands constituency in Nairobi on Wednesday for a meeting with a section of religious leaders. While addressing the men and women of the cloth, Raila took the opportunity to fold the plan by the President William Ruto-led government to introduce fees for first-time ID applications and to increase charges for ID replacement, passport applications, as well as applications for birth, marriage and death certificates.
Kitambulisho inatakikana kila Mkenya apate bila kulipa chochote. Manake hiyo ndio inaonyesha wewe ni Mkenya. Sasa mtu anataka uende ununue kitambulisho kwa Mkenya na baba yako ni Mkenya, mama yako ni Mkenya.
According to a Gazette notice issued by Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki on Tuesday, Kenyans who want to apply for a new ID that has always been issued free of charge will have to part with 300 shillings, while those who want to replace lost IDs will have to pay 1,000 shillings, up from 100 shillings. Initially, the government had intended to increase the fee for new ID applications to 1,000 shillings, while that of ID replacements to 2,000 shillings.
Watu wameshindwa. Mambo ya kitambulisho tutasema ni lazima kila Mkenya apewe kitambulisho kama yeye hana pesa.
Raila, who in recent weeks has been silent over the runaway cost of living, at the same time defended his silence, saying he's waiting to see whether the upcoming National Dialogue Committee report will aptly address the issue.
Bei ya mafuta irudi chini. Bei ya unga irudi chini. Bei ya sukari irudi chini. Bei ya stima irudi chini. Nauli ya kusafiri irudi chini. Hata kodi ya nyumba irudi chini.
Kitu ya pili, if they have not addressed the issue for IEBC, then that report is not complete. We shall shoot it down. That one we can promise that we shall not allow it to pass.
Raila also partly attributed his silence to his decision not to engage in early campaigns, saying they will put the country on edge with approximately 4 years still left to the next general election.
Even those who did not vote for him, now they are crying for him. Wanataka asungumuze.
Baba, kwa wakati huu Mungu amesema unyamaze hivyo. Kama Musa, watoto wa Israeli walizunguka hiyo 40 years hapo jangwani hivyo hivyo. Hapo ndio tuko.
Wewe kama uko na umbwa yako ya kukuchunga iko kwa mlango, umbwa ikuone wewe umeshika mwizi mkono unaingia na yeye kwa nyumba, umbwa imekuona wewe ndio umeingiza mwizi kwa nyumba, alafu unasimama unasema mbona hiyo umbwa haikubweka? Ibweke aje na imekuona wewe ukiingiza mwizi kwa nyumba.
This comes as the opposition declared a stalemate on the bipartisan talks over the cost of living issue. David Mudhoka, KTN News, Nairobi.
Now, states of national dialogue stalemate and possible collapse, if you go on, of talks due to headline positions taken parties to iron out position next week on Wednesday. Reports writing called off parties failed to agree on reducing cost of living, prompting Azimio to declare a stalemate. Azimio insisted that VAT and other taxes on fuel be cut to at least 8%. Kenya Kwanza insisted that its hands are tied, as the 16% VAT on fuel was part of the deal with IMF. Azimio pushed for scaling up an expansion of the social protection programs to cover more people and pay more money. Kenya Kwanza holds there is no money to program Azimio wanted, that is the housing levy or they wanted the housing levy scrapped, reduced, or made voluntary. Kenya Kwanza says it is their flagship manifesto promise that cannot be dropped or changed, I should say. Let's just listen in.
We have also found need to make further consultations, and that's why we asked for timeout to make further consultations, principally with the National Treasury, and we shall be recalling the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the National Treasury to join us when we reconvene next week on Wednesday, by which time we expect also to have a draft report to consider as we settle on the small issues that we are here to agree on.
It is important that we hear from Treasury, and that is where they should help us crack that issue, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who collect the revenue, they are the ones who dispense, of course, service government programs, and so at this time we all know the country is crying out for help. So the cost of living matter, we decided to confront it head on. Okay, that's why we have asked for further consultations.
The National Cereals and Produce Board has opened its stores to buy maize from farmers in the North Rift region. NCPB will receive supplies that meet the conditions for required quality parameters and only from farmers registered with the Ministry of Agriculture across the country. The development has sparked mixed reactions from maize producers in the region. Some dismiss the 4,000 per 90 kilogram bag, way below market prices, while others say the new price will help stabilize the market by curbing exploitation. Elvis Koske has more.
It was a slow Wednesday at the National Cereals and Produce Board depot in Eldoret. Most farmers from the North Rift region hinted that they'll store their produce in anticipation of higher prices in the near future. Even though the board is procuring maize at 4,000 shillings per 90 kg bag, many farmers prefer to hoard their produce, anticipating the price to hit 5,500 shillings per bag in the informal market.
Juu hatutaki broker faidi na jasho yetu, hatutakubali hiyo kamwe.
Haitawezekana. Hiyo basali mahindi yangu ni kule mahindi yangu. Hiyo haitawezekana. Hiyo haitawezekana. Hiyo bei hakuna kitu unapata. Hata mfanyakazi alifanya, hata mimi nilifanya hapo, hakuna kitu nitafaidika hapo. Hiyo bei haiwezekani kabisa.
Others say the latest development is expected to stabilize maize prices that had dropped to as low as 3,400 shillings in parts of the North Rift region.
Tunataka tushukuru serikali kwa sababu sisi wote ni wa serikali na ndio papa yetu. Lakini ile kwa sekta ya ukulima, pale nyumbani mkulima hajai onyeshwa namna ya kutunza mahindi ifikie hiyo kiwango.
Kwa kutupatia hii kuanza kununua mahindi, tulikuwa tumefikiria kwamba wanaongea tu kwa mdomo, lakini sasa tumeona wameanza kununua.
According to the NCPB, farmers can now deliver their grains that are within moisture content of below 18% to silos that have drying facilities. Drying services are subsidized and farmers can pay 70 shillings for a 90 kg bag to have their grains dried to 13.5% moisture content.
Kama hii mahindi unaona hapa nyuma yangu nimeanika hapa siku 4. Pale cereals ukipeleka wanataka yenye iko chini ya 18 moisture. Ndio waweze kukaushia ile imepaki 5. Na wanaanika na shilingi 70. Hapa kwa chua nitaanika na shilingi 30. So tulikuwa tunaomba serikali pia waangalie tuone ni njia gani inaweza saidia mkulima bila kuumia.
4,000 naona iko chini. Kulingana na gharama ambayo tumeitumia iko chini. Tukipata tu bei ya 5,000 na kwenda juu, at least hapo ndio bei nzuri.
Ona chenye anafanyia watu wenye wako na njaa na wakulima. Sasa kama sisi wakulima watutengenezee bei, alafu wauzaji waone chenye watauzia.
According to the NCPB, in the North Rift region, dryers are now available in silos in Kitale, Moisbridge and Eldoret. Elvis Kosgei, KT News, Uasin Gishu County.
Head over down to Kisumu County, where political leadership wants President William Ruto to speed up talks with his Uganda counterpart, Yoweri Museveni, to reverse his decision of shipping oil using Tanzania instead of Kenya. According to the leaders, The decision threatens the activities at the Kisumu port that has oil transportation as a major activity, and Bramwell Wire tells us more.
The Kisumu Oil Jetty is part of the port of Kisumu. It is one of the projects whose revival was prioritized by the previous government and indeed the present regime. The recent decision by Uganda President Yoweri Museveni to choose Dar es Salaam port in Tanzania as its entry point for its oil imports has raised concern among political leadership in Kisumu.
For us, we think that it must be some form of economic sabotage for the region. When we were asking the president just the other day to give a very clear roadmap of what his agenda is for Kisumu and for the region, we did list the port of Kisumu as being our #1 priority. And we did ask him to assure us that he will connect the port of Mombasa and the port of Lamu to the port of Kisumu by standard gauge railway. Now, instead of that happening, we are hearing that now Uganda will be shipping oil through the port of Tanzania.
Currently, the port of Kisumu, which is highly dependent on transportation of oil products, harbors 3 vessels. The Kabaka Mutebi vessel that has 4.5 million litre capacity, and MV Uhuru 1 and 2 that have capacity of more than 1 million litres each. The leaders argue that any disruption will be a huge blow to the relentless efforts to revive maritime transport on Lake Victoria.
Every time he goes, he's our #1 ambassador, and that is it means well for the country. And this is a challenge. Just our next door neighbor is not willing to do for us with us business in a very, very critical area. We need to re-examine ourselves as a country. What is it that is driving people away?
Wakati Kenya inasafirisha mafuta ya Uganda kwa pipeline yetu, kuna hela zinapatikana na serikali, na hawezi wakasema hiyo pesa ipewa Tanzania. Kwa hivyo unajua kuna siasa na kuna uangalifu wa kindani.
The Kisumu business community remains optimistic that the two presidents will find a favorable middle ground.
Na sisi tunavyoona ni kwamba haya mambo yatatatuliwa na mafuta yataendelea kusafirishwa Kenya, na tusije tukafikiria kwamba ni Kenya tu lazima isafirishe. Zingine zinaweza kusafiri kutoka Dar es Salaam ama Tanga.
Uganda's Ministry of Energy and Minerals bill in Parliament that seek to cut reliance of Kenya for importation of its petroleum products has been approved by both the Cabinet and the Parliament. It comes after President Museveni on social media claimed that middlemen in Kenya had made fuel very expensive in Uganda. Bramwell Wire, KTN News, Kisumu.
Right, and by the same token, the ever-rising fuel prices have had a spiral effect, aging out independent small-scale fuel dealers who cannot stand the harsh economic times. The traders say it is becoming increasingly impossible to pay employers food power bills and remain afloat with shrinking fortunes. They also claim cartels have taken over the industry, compounding their misfortunes. Border operators alike say they risk defaulting on motorbike loans as customers avoid paying higher fares. Alon Chanda has more.
It is a common phenomenon to spot small fueling stations along the Kenyan roads, which come in handy for motorists and border operators as they sell the crucial commodities in desired quantities, besides creating employment opportunities. This is diminishing as such fueling stations close shop, operators blaming it on the high cost of fuel. 47-year-old Nona Jikano has been in the fuel business for 15 years at Haega in Kakamega County. Her fortunes have been dwindling and has decided to close shop.
Nimefanya hii mafuta kwa miaka 15 na imeendelea mpaka imenishinda. Mpaka nimeamua nifunge. Kuweka mafuta unakuta inakuliwa tu. Hata profit hakuna ndani.
She says profit margins have shrunk considerably. She has already dismantled some of her fuel pumps, with the premises now turning into a boda shed.
Au wafanyabiashara wa mafuta saa hii hata sidhani kama wataendelea na mafuta. Tuko wafanyabiashara wadogo tunajificha kwa hao wakubwa. Sasa tutabakishia wakubwa wafanye biashara hiyo pengine.
Right opposite her business premises is another small fueling station that has not operated for months now. In Lurambi, in the outskirts of Kakamega town, Francis Luther, who has been in this trade for 15 years, checks on his property.
The profit margin we could get from a liter is 1 shilling, sometimes 1 shillings and 50 cents per liter. This one cannot be able to meet up the cost of operating pumps, being able to pay for workers and running the station in full. So that's how we have ended up running out of businesses.
Luther says his business witnessed profits of between 7 to 10 shillings per litre of petrol in its initial years, but now fetches a paltry 1 shilling profit per litre, forcing him to leave these pumps to gather dust.
Also, the cost of electricity has gone high. Like this pump station here, electricity costs to a tune between 12,000 and 15,000 per month. So it is the cost of electricity that has gone high, and more so, the fuel is being operated by, we call them cartels.
A few meters from his place, we meet Vincent Liondo, who has been a manager at Evolving Petrol Station. They are no longer in business too.
The station ran for 2.5 years. Ilifungwa in September this year, so in around 2 months. Tulikuwa 6 employees na tangu tufunge wako tu nyumbani so far, wajapata kazi. Ni wale tu wanafanya barua kidogo ndio wamefanikiwa kidogo.
As we engage the fuel dealers, we spot a boda rider pushing his bike. He ran out of fuel and his customer abandoned him for another rider. He resorts to ingenious ways of turning the bike downwards and pumping pressure with his mouth into the fuel tank.
Nimesukuma pikipiki for 1 kilometer. Nilikuwa na mteja, hata imebidi nimemwacha kwa sababu mali nilikuwa nadhania nitapata mafuta, sijapata. So inafaa nisukume niende mpaka labda nikipata sigalagala. Hii kupuliza inamaanisha nione kama nitafaulu au itaniwezesha nisonga hata kama ni 100 meters, ndio kwa sababu mali niko kufika sigalagala bado ni mbali. So nijaribu nione kama itaaka kidogo, kama inaweza nifikisha.
Samson and other boda operators say the current situation might push them to the edge and are worried they might default their loans and thus their sources of income repossessed, as passengers do not want to hear anything like doubling of transport costs.
Niko worried kwa sababu nimeshindwa kulipa. Tukiongea sasa kwa sababu ya mafuta vile imepanda. Kusema ukweli nimeshindwa kulipa. So sijui kama siku yote natarajia tu wakuje wachukue hiyo pikipiki kwa sababu mafuta imepanda, customer amekataa kupanda, mimi maisha imenilemea.
Watu wengi hapa wa pikipiki wamechukua pikipiki kwa loan. Wamechukua kwa loan. So vile maisha imeenda hivi juu inakuwa ni ngumu kulipa. After unaona pikipiki itaenda watachukua, ambapo vijana wengi watakosa kazi, wizi nao itakuwa mwingi.
On the Kakamega-Webuye highway, the situation is the same too, as several fuel stations have been shut down. Their plea to the Ministry of Energy is to wipe out the cartels in the industry and streamline the sector. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
All right, that is the current state of play as far as of course, the hustlers are concerned on the ground. The fuel is skyrocketing. And we want just to hark back to some of the stories that we just run by you, especially beginning with the ID issue and what now Raila is taking it as his catnip issue. And he says that he will fight P to charge fees for IDs, as you can see it here on the front page of the People Daily. So we'll slice and dice some of these issues that have been raised so far. And I just want to begin with you, Bill Okero, on that particular development so far. We saw the CS of Interior backpedaling on that particular decision of the Gazette notice on actually charging the IDs. It seems even it will be expensive to die in this country because getting a death certificate, right? You don't want to die. Milo Kero, you don't want to die.
Yeah, life is becoming very difficult for Kenyans, and this government is making it worse. last week when I was, doing a presentation to the National Dialogue Committee, one of the things I raised is that any policy, any new policy or change in any administrative or, legal framework that is introduced by any department of government or institution of government must be examined in the context of its impact on the cost of living or the lives of Kenyans. I think this is across the board. There seems to be a disconnect between public servants and the situation on the ground, the reality on the ground, the way Kenyans are suffering. So every department comes up and says, we want to charge this, and we want to charge this, and we want to do this. They don't look at the impact on the cost of living. And I think that's the broader picture that the government needs to look at. That any proposal from any government institution must be examined in terms of its impact on the cost of living. That's where we should begin. For example, this week alone, IDs, and the Minister of Internal Security, then the Ministry of Land, revising fees,
the land registrations, yes.
KPA announcing, review of the rates. Then we had the Ministry for Roads announcing, the CS Roads announcing that they're going to start charging toll charges on major highways. This week alone, this is only this week alone, KRA, on all small goods, the loose goods which are imported through consolidated cards, now they're going to inspect them. It's going to be kept to do inspections piece by piece. It's going to be very expensive for people now to do those imports. I think generally, and this is happening every week. Every week you hear new levies, new charges, new programs that put a lot of emphasis on cost. There seems to be a desperation by the government to collect revenue, revenues within the government institutions and government departments. But the irony is that governments are there to provide services to public. This is why I agree with the opposition leader Raila that we are not supposed to pay for every service that we get from public service. That's why we pay tax. We pay tax to government so that they can provide services. That's why when you go to a government office, you expect to be given service. You cannot be paying taxes, paying that officer sitting there, with salaries and everything. And when you go for service, you are again being told to pay for that particular service. Pay for this ID, pay for this form, for this transaction. Every activity that the government officer is doing for you, you pay for it again. This is madness. I mean, that's not the essence of public service. That's why you collect tax. And this is institutions that are supposed to be financed through the taxes that we pay. So it doesn't really, I think the Kenyans are suffering double jeopardy on this, this is another form of tax. In fact, in government, it is called, it's what they're calling ordinary revenue. The other day they were saying there's still $100 billion below on the collection on A, which is revenue that institutions collect. So I think it's the principle really is that the government needs to look at. The policy should be governments are there to provide services. You cannot charge for every service that the government office provides. For example, an ID is an identity card for your citizenship. They're the ones who require you to have it. It's not me who needs it. If I need service, which the government is not supposed to, I can be asked to pay for it. But if it is something the government wants you to have, then I think they should be providing those services at no cost to Kenyans, because Kenyans have paid taxes so that government provides services. That's why the government exists. So I think there seems to be a craze about collecting revenues any which way you can. And this is impacting on the lives of Kenyans. Big time, I'm telling you. Every single department, institutions, agency is taxing, is charging levies, is making things difficult. So that you have to, your cost of production, your cost of living, your cost of doing business, everything is becoming expensive, and it's being replicated at county level. In counties, even worse. They're being told, collect own revenue, own source revenue. The same national government that is taxed as everyone is telling the counties also, you also collect. So counties are also introducing the same things. So it's impossible. When you look at, someone did a study one time, over 600 different types of levies and charges being collected by both levels of government. It's madness. You can't run a country this way.
Right, and of course, even now, Munyasi Sako, if you want to go to museum and also the national parks, the government is mulling over increasing the rates there as well. So I think from that particular list that Bilo has just read, he missed out on that as well. Maybe you can pick from there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, but remember that the outputs of museums, and parks is high consumption. In fact, it is consumption for the middle and upper income people, so they should pay something. But no, I have a general principle which is very much in line with what Bill has said. The reason that people are willing to pay taxes is that they receive services in return, particularly basic services. In countries like the Scandinavian countries and parts of Europe, for example, Holland, Germany, and but then upper still Denmark and Norway and Sweden, they are very high taxes on average. But the services also that people get, like medical services, transport subsidies, huge, are big, because they pay this from the general tax.
Education.
Yes, education, for example. Countries like Finland, they are famed to have perhaps the best education system in the world. It's free. It's publicly free. And when we say free, we mean free, all including transport and medical support and counseling and so on. I think that in Kenya, they have done one good thing, though. They have sensitized people to paying their share of revenue in society. But I think now it's time they took stock. How much tax is too much? You see it when the revenue curve shifts. That it's no longer, incremental tax no longer, or rate is no longer bringing you more revenue. It may in fact decline revenue, might even reduce participation and so on. That's one. Two, I think they need social assessments around it. It's old economics that we have lived with for many years. That when you have a new policy initiative, you ask yourself, who are the gainers, who are the losers? What segment of society is going to lose? Should we make them lose deliberately because that's what we want to achieve? Or is that something that's going to undercut where we want to go? Like now, particularly with the bottom-up economic transformation model, which conceptually I support strongly. But now it looks like its implementation can hit some tough patches and so on. And they must be prepared to step back and correct where that's the issue, and step back and pull back where that is needed. So I think that the public mood has also got to a point where government cannot ignore the views of ordinary citizens. I saw that clip, the oil clip, in those stations. And I think they come out very clearly on what the problems are under existing tax regime, and I would expect there will be a countermeasure from government, finding ways in which they can alleviate this. You don't have to introduce all your taxes in 1 year, for example. But now the problem there is that everybody seems to think it is a good innovation to go to the press and say, oh, in 3 months we are raising this, or next year we are going to raise this, and so on. That also needs to be managed. I think it is very discouraging when, for example, the people in the power sector even begin to imagine that they will again raise taxes before this has actually settled it. Those things like that need to be managed properly. And I think we need to ask ourselves just how much is going to be too much in respect of our country, not in respect of other countries and so on.
Indeed. All right, we want to take a short break right now. And when we circle back, of course, we shall be looking at the new development from the Ministry of Transport, where we have the CS mulling over, coming up with an expert committee to assess the state of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, let's say International University, and Wilson Airport, and more airports as well. Very interesting editorial cartoon that we have here also in the People Daily and the Daily Nation this morning. If you may directly just pick it up as we take a short break. Wasn't me, that was the allegation, and you can see him dragging the former president there to the limelight under, of course, that particular ominous cloud dark wind that has been reigning at JKIA. This is the current state of play. Do we need this committee of experts to analyze what is the current state of play of our airports in the country, or people should just buckle down and work? We'll take a short break.